So we got a question with relation to the Canon EOS M6 Mark II. I use the EOS M6 Mark II, digital IS enabled or enhanced, is working only with electronic lenses. Yes, like the Sigma 18-35, which is in literally the exact same setup I have right here, which is Sigma 18-35, EOS M6 Mark II, with regular digital stabilization enabled. So when I do something like this, it's not as pronounced. Is there a way around this to get it enabled for manual lenses? I don't see why it wouldn't work. Sorry if it's off topic. Okay, cool. So a couple things to understand with relation to how digital stabilization works. One of the variables that needs to be known by the camera is the focal length that is being used. So for anybody who is not familiar, right, lenses tend to have, there are these electronic contacts, and these contacts essentially communicate to the camera, essentially the focal length, the aperture, a whole bunch of other metadata that is then communicated to the camera. And so the camera then uses that information to process that footage and with regards to any kind of artificial digital stabilization that's going to be doing. Or even if it's not artificial, like for example, the Panasonic cameras, they like the GH5, S5, S5 Mark II, almost any camera with internal image sensor stabilization or in-body image stabilization, they also need that information as well with relation to what is the focal length that you're using. So problem is that when you're using on the Canon M6 Mark II, when you're using a manual or a vintage lens, that information is not being communicated. And so, and there's no way to, live to be able to pass that information onto the camera. And so, unlike Sony cameras, whether it's a Sony ZV-E10 or a Panasonic GH5, right, when you pair a manual lens with the camera, what ends up happening is on the camera itself, you'll get a prompt saying, hey, what is the focal length? And so you input the focal length, and whatever stabilization that needs to be done is done in accordance to whatever the focal length is. However, there is a workaround. I will include at the end of this video, you know how the YouTube makes a pop-up. You can check out any one of those two videos. One video is going to be the showcase of what is the difference in the quality of stabilization between digital IS and IS enhanced, or no, more specifically just IS enhanced in comparison to the solution I'm about to share with you, which is gyro data stabilization. So this is going to be something that logs your gyroscopic movement data, essentially your tilt, your pan, and your roll, right? These are three movements that are recorded within this. Now, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to use a software called GyroFlow. What GyroFlow does is that it takes that gyroscopic metadata, I think metadata is the appropriate term. If not, then go ahead and correct me. But it takes that information, takes that data, and then it pairs it with the footage that you've shot here with the Canon EOS M6 Mark II. And then what it does is you tell it within the software what focal length you shot at. And so taking all three of those factors, the footage, the gyro data, and the focal length, and then you can play with the settings to essentially get some really smooth, almost gimbal-like footage. That is the best solution and the only solution that tends to work with Canon cameras as of right now. Now, you don't necessarily have to see, you don't see this option necessary with relation to Sony cameras because of the fact that Sony does gyro data logging within it. It doesn't even have to be S360. It could be S360. It could be gyro, the gyro data from like a GoPro. It could be a phone, I guess. But the best option to me, because I already have S360, I have a GoPro. Both work just fine. So, and I'll link up the tutorial in this video. I personally don't like using digital IS enhanced, mainly for the reason because the video image that's coming out of the Canon EOS M6 Mark II is already upscaled. And what does that mean? Now, for any EOS M MLV raw users, you're already familiar with this. When you use something like, for example, crop mode or just Magic Lantern non-crop mode builds, you have the option of choosing the resolution, right? And you might choose something like HD 1080p, but the actual resolution is significantly lower than that. It's because it's doing what's known as pixel binning. It's probably taken every other every third pixel in terms of what's available, because it's far greater. It's like 5K image, and so but then when you do that pixel binning, you end up getting a less than HD image, which is then upscaled. Something similar is happening with the M6 Mark II, where you're not getting a 1-to-1 pixel readout, nor are you getting any oversampled image. What's happening is it's a 32 megapixel camera. You're getting almost 7K image, but due to pixel binning, you end up with like a 3.2K image, and that gets upscaled to 4K. So the image quality, I mean, I guess it's generally softer, and for faces and things like that, it's just, I guess it's better, especially if you have, any kind of blemishes and things like that, in comparison to like an oversampled image where you're going to see every single nook, cranny, detail, pore of a face. So, but the issue is that you take a 3.2K image, scaling it up to 4K, and then running it through running it through the digital enhanced stabilization, which is an additional 1.4x crop. Whereas with GyroFlow, you can set how much to crop. It can be a 10% crop, it can be a 20% crop, whatever that is. It's just that the crop in IS Enhanced is significantly more, and that's why it's not my preferred method. Essentially, at this point, you're getting like a 1080p image that you then upscale into 4K, which is not my preferred image quality. So, but the upside, the reason Canon will do that is so that they can get a faster sensor readout speed to reduce the rolling shutter, which is a positive. But if you use GyroFlow, then you can also mitigate the shutter speed to almost get like an almost global-like shutter. Totally beside the point, but anyway, you will see the links to the tutorial on how to use GyroFlow for your Canon camera. The example in this link is actually being used with the Canon R8, but it's the same process. It doesn't matter which Canon camera or any camera for that matter you're using. And this here, the other video, is the showcase of what it looks like before and after comparing Digital IS Enhanced to GyroFlow. Hope you found that a benefit. I'll see you soon.